Friends, today I have with me our youngest son, Nickolas, and I asked Nickolas to come and just share some of his perspective of what life is like living during wartime. He's been living, well, you lived pretty much most of your life in Ukraine, right?
Yes, yeah.
And the last year and a half or so during the war, so I thought it'd be interesting to get that perspective from a younger person. You hear from me enough and from Christina. So, Nickolas, let me first ask you a question. Do you like living in Ukraine?
Yes, I really enjoy living here because, first of all, this is where I grew up. I was here since I was 1 year old, and I had my first memories here.
Well, actually, you were born in the U.S.
Well, I was born in the U.S. I was a few months old when you guys brought me
Yeah, you
here.
were like 5 months old.
So basically, I spent a majority of my life here, and this is just my home, so I really enjoy being here.
So do you consider Ukraine your home more than U.S.?
Yes.
Okay. So, when we had to leave the first month and a half of the war, what was that like for you?
That was really tough because I just thought about all my childhood memories just being erased by the war, getting bombed and stuff, but thankfully it never really got to that scale, at least where I live. I know that's happened in other parts of Ukraine, and I'm thankful that everything here is quite safe.
So we never got bombed here?
No, we get bombed occasionally, but it's minor compared to what I was thinking at the start of the war. But now that I have more in-depth knowledge about this, it's not as frightening as before.
So do you remember the first time you came back to Ukraine after the war started?
Yeah, I remember. It was a warm May night.
So the war started in the end of February.
Yeah.
And you were out for that end of February, and then April, and then beginning or in May, middle of May, I think you came back, right?
Yeah, like it was right after the school year, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a warm May night. We were driving into the city. We were going through a checkpoint. There were hundreds of bugs everywhere. I couldn't see anything, but then we got home, and it just felt so good to finally be home and to lie down on my own bed.
And what are some of the main differences between Odesa during wartime and Odesa before wartime when everything was normal?
Well, when I first came to Ukraine after the war started in May, it felt extremely empty, and I mean, there was just a big difference. You could definitely tell there was a war going on. But I feel like now it's completely normal. There's traffic in the morning, there's traffic in the evening, there's people outside, there's kids. It just feels like normal now.
But there's still some differences between now and before the war, right?
Well, yeah, that's true. Like you do see some like anti-military vehicle stuff, like hedgehogs that are made to stop tanks and stuff like that. And you can't go on the beaches because they're mined. But other than that, it just feels normal.
Okay, what about air raids?
Air raids, they are very annoying. They normally happen at night, right when I want to get some sleep. And I have to get up maybe for about an hour or two, sometimes even shorter. And we just have to sit in the hallways and wait for them to finish. So, yeah.
Okay, so tell me, do you have to go and hide in every single air raid?
For some air raids, we don't hide, because we can see where the missile or drone is going. If it's going to southern Odesa, then we just stay in our beds and we keep watching the news just to see if there's anything coming our way.
So, like, how often would you have an air raid?
About once every night or every other night. There was one the night before last. There was lots of shooting. That was a bigger air raid, but normally some air raids, they're kind of quiet. There's not much happening, but yeah. And
we didn't, so last night we didn't have an air raid, right?
No.
And I don't think we had one today.
Oh, no, we may have. Yeah, we did.
We did? I don't know, I didn't
2
notice.
rockets.
But the night before last, so that was what you would call a fair, bigger one. How often do you have those bigger ones, would you say, where you actually would hear maybe explosions or see some explosions?
I'd say those would happen about once, maybe a week or every other week. They're not too common because Russia's kind of keeping their rockets and stuff. They're waiting for the really cold days so that they could cut off our power. But yeah, they can happen pretty often, and I'd assume they're going to be more often in colder days.
So tell me, like then, when we have the bigger air raids and there's explosions and things like that, like is that kind of scary? Do you cry? What do you do?
I mean, I really don't pay attention much to what's going on outside. I just play my games. Maybe I call my friends just to play with them. I mean, it doesn't affect me much. I just it's just annoying, and it's a thing I have to get through. I mean, when it first happened, when I first heard air raid and explosions, that was really scary to me. But now it's just, I've gotten so used to it, I'm like immune to it. And the chance...
Yeah, I'm just thinking like I don't know if you remember like the first, really big attack where there was lots of explosions, that was kind of scary.
Well, the most memorable one that was early on in the war was the last December. I was at my grandparents' house.
Oh, right.
And they started hitting. We heard about 17 explosions that day. And on the 10th one, our lights started flickering. And it wasn't normal for our lights to flicker in my grandparents' house because they are connected straight to the hospital. And normally the hospital always has electricity. So we were really scared because if the electricity is gone in the hospital, that's like really big. And it was, and we didn't have electricity for days after that, so that was really scary.
Wow. Well, I think that also, of course, the night before last was medium-sized one, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think, was it maybe September? Well, actually in July, we had a couple big ones. September, maybe in August too.
October, there was a big one when the girls came.
That was the end of September.
Oh, end of September.
So
yeah.
tell us a little bit what that air raid, what that attack was like.
Well, this attack was, honestly, I'd say the biggest one, or closest one we've had. We heard many explosions, and it felt like they were right above our heads, but thankfully they were not. There were, I don't know, I'd say about 10 that sounded extremely close, like the closest we've ever heard. And that was quite scary, but even then, it wasn't too scared. I wasn't too scared, but we had 2 girls there. They just came to Ukraine during the war, and that was their first hand-on experience. So
when some of these big explosions go off, like, can you see them? Can you feel them? What is it like?
Well, some explosions that are closer, they can definitely shake the doors or blow them open. Not like extremely hard, but they can blow them open. And I can look out the window and I can see the red tracers that are trying to hit the drones. That's honestly just more interesting than scary to me, because I kind of like guns and
Okay,
stuff.
so let me ask. Okay, so do you know anything about like some of the weapons that they attack us with?
Yeah, I basically know all of them that they attack us with. They have the kinjal, they have the shahidi, and they have the mig. Those are the most common ones, and then there's just like regular rockets.
What are the shahidi?
Shahidi are like drones, and they just crash into something and it just explodes everywhere.
Kamikaze drones, right?
Yeah, kamikaze, and one landed 200 meters away from your office.
Yeah.
So, and we heard them one time too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So okay, but that's not like, I mean, it's not like we're having those attacks all the time, right? So like you said, maybe once every week or two. What about, like, you've traveled a little bit to some places that are maybe closer to the front lines where there's more active fighting going on, right? What are some of those places that you've traveled to, and what was your experience like there?
Well, my experiences in the more closer to the front lines, they were very positive. It was very lively in the cities that I was in. Lots of kids outside.
Well, like, for instance, where?
In Drushkivka.
Drushkivka, okay.
Lots of kids outside, the stores.
Which is eastern Ukraine.
Yeah, very
Donetsk
close to the
region.
front lines.
Yeah.
It could be hit by artillery, and there's just kids playing around outside. So that's just really encouraging.
So it's kind of interesting that some of those cities are not like they're just like everyone's hidden away. There's people there. There's life going on, and
yeah, and like there's like, it's very encouraging to see those kids that are just playing around in the playground, even though an artillery can just hit them any second, and they wouldn't know.
What about like Kherson region, the city of Kherson?
Well, Kherson is a different place because it was occupied by Russians, unlike the places in Donetsk that we were in. So it was definitely more like depressing there. Many more places were hit and destroyed. And there were not many people there because they all evacuated, and most of them are in Europe somewhere like that. So yeah.
So have you seen any places that were just really like terribly destroyed by fighting?
Yeah, when we go to the city of Kherson from Odessa, we can just see villages upon villages without roofs, like hundreds, and it's just crazy to see, but that was just where the fighting was very intense. So yeah.
And do you ever hear any explosions when you're there?
We heard a few, but I mean they're not very common. It's mortar shots, and people
And
there.
artillery.
Yeah. People there have actually learned to know if it was our side shooting, or if it was Russia shooting to them. So they know to hide or not just quickly if they hear it.
So what was one of your maybe favorite trips that you went on here?
I would say my favorite trip was probably going to the Donetsk region and then Kharkiv region. Those were definitely my favorites because we could go to the front lines, talk to the soldiers, evangelize to them, and then we could go to Kharkiv where we talked to people who were in Russian occupation, and they told us what it was like.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask you. So you were in Balakleya, which was occupied by Russians. What was it like? And now it's liberated. It's controlled by Ukraine. What was it like in Balakleya?
Balakleya was actually, it felt normal, although a little bit empty. I never really knew what it was like before, but definitely there were some places that had been hit. You could see the people were kind of more just not talking, and they were kind of they looked depressed too. I mean, I would be depressed if I was in Russian occupation.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of sad there, but there were nice, very nice people there, which was nice to see.
What about just like walking around the city? Were there any remnants of Russians being there that you noticed?
There were a few. Like I could see some exploded places. I could see a bridge that was exploded. There was also lots of mines.
Like in the city?
Inside the city, like on next to the sidewalk, a guy was walking his dog, and he accidentally stepped on one after the liberation. So that's just crazy. And Russians, who would also mine cemeteries, which is it's just outrageous that they have to do that they do that.
Yeah, definitely, and dangerous. Yeah. So what do you think about the war right now? Do you think that like Ukraine is winning, they're losing, that it's a stalemate? Do you have any predictions? What do you think?
Well, I'm 100% sure Ukraine is gonna win. Ukraine is currently, it's kind of a stalemate right now, but Ukraine is slowly taking land back, which is great. Last year in the winter though, that's when they did the most progression, but now it's kind of more just kind of slow and steady. So we hope that we come out with a win quickly.
Okay, and I want to, what would you recommend, like, if people want to come to visit Ukraine? Do you think it's a good idea to come now, or do you think it's too dangerous, or what do you think?
I think right now it's great. Lots of people need to be evangelized too, especially in Odesa and Nickolas, because they've been hit quite a bit, and there's many people there that are scared and they've lost loved ones, so they need the gospel the most. And it's not too dangerous in those places. If there's an air raid, you can just always go down into a bunker. There's always a bunker nearby, not too far away. So I feel like it'd be perfect to come to Ukraine, and it's not too dangerous, I would say.
Oh, and I was gonna ask you, the attack that we had the night before last, what did the Russians hit?
Oh, the Russians hit a museum, well, almost. They hit right next to a museum, and they hit the road that we take. And we took that road an hour or two right before that happened, so thank God that we weren't on that road when that happened.
Yeah. And one thing, oh yeah, can you show us, you can show us like where you go and sit when there's actually like an attack happening?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I'll just grab the camera here. Oh, go to that. Okay.
Okay, so this is the girls' room. It's not very safe in here. So this door normally gets blown open if there's an attack very close. So we normally come out over here, and this is my room right here. Yeah, you can go turn the light on. So this is my room. I just closed the door. This is the pantry. We also closed the door. We close all the doors that we can. And this door's kind of loose, so we have to lock it when there's an air raid. And I normally kind of just sit in the middle because there's glass right there and there's glass right behind you. So I kind of have to sit here because glass can come from here, hit me. Glass can come from there and hit me.
So you sit on the floor or what?
Yeah, I sit on the floor or I lie down. And then those doors can swing open, hit me in the face. Bookshelf can fall on me, that can fall on me.
It doesn't sound like a very safe spot.
Well, it's the same, or we could just go into the bathroom. Yeah. So, I mean, this is one of the spots I go. There's another spot over here in this hallway. As you can see, we actually have a chair here from air raid today.
Yeah, that's the air raid chair. I'll go back here so you can see where it is.
So, my mom sits here, I sit here, and you sit right there. So this is a very safe place actually because the glass is just right there. There's no glass over there or over there.
So why are you saying anything about glass? What does that have to do with anything?
The reason I'm talking about the glass is because the shockwave tends to break glass very easily. So if there's a very close rocket, it can easily break glass and it could hit you in the head, the eye, or any vital part, and you could quickly die from it. So we normally just sit right here, and if we hear something, we can just look out the window real quick and take a peek. So yeah.
Okay, any last words?
It's great here. Slava Ukraini.
Okay, Nickolas, thank you so much for the interview.
You're welcome.